Some mornings you wake up and figure it'll be just another day of surviving winter. December 1875, and the frost held the New Mexico high country so tight I could hear the trees cracking from the cold. I'd gone out hunting deer, needed meat for the long months ahead, enough to fill my smokehouse before the worst of it hit. What I found instead was a woman bleeding in a circle of snow. Apache symbols drawn careful in the white, like someone preparing for ceremony or death. Maybe both. She was half frozen, buckskin dress torn to hell, rope burns raw on her wrists, steam still rising from the wounds meant she was alive. Barely. I should have left her there. Lord knows it would have been easier. I had no business getting tangled up with Apache troubles. Not after everything that had happened at Raven Ridge 10 years back. But I'd left too many people behind already in this life. By the time the spring thaw came, we'd either be free or buried in unmarked graves. And that woman bleeding in the snow? She was about to save my soul, even if it killed us both. The morning was cold enough that the air burned in my lungs. I'm Silas Thornton, 45 years old, former Union Army captain, current nobody living 3 days' ride from anywhere that mattered. My cabin sat in the high country where a man could go weeks without seeing another soul. That's how I'd wanted it for 3 years running, ever since Elizabeth died, and I'd built this place to escape the memories. Didn't work. You can't outrun ghosts, but a man keeps trying. I'd saddled Cooper before first light, rifle slung across my shoulder, tracking a buck I'd spotted days earlier. Snow was knee-deep in places, but the cold made it pack solid enough for walking. My breath frosted in my beard, and that old war wound in my shoulder had started its familiar ache. Weather turning worse. The deer trail led me toward a canyon I didn't usually work. That's when I saw the ravens, maybe a dozen of them, circling but not landing. No carcass smell in the wind. Something was wrong. I found the circle first. 12 feet across, drawn perfect in fresh snow. Apache symbols I recognized from my scouting days. Protection, spirit passage, ceremony for the dead. Blood stained the white at the center, dark and still spreading, fresh, maybe 2 hours old. Then I saw her. A bundle of torn buckskin, dark hair spread across the snow like swollen woman. Apache, from the markings on what was left of her dress. She was breathing, barely. Little puffs of steam from her lips told me hypothermia hadn't finished her yet, but it was working on it. I knelt, checking for a pulse. Skin cold as marble, but her heart was still fighting. That's when I saw the rope burns on her wrists, raw, recent. Someone had tied her hard enough to cut through skin, and she'd fought like hell to get free. Apache. The word came out flat. We had 10 years of bad blood between our people. Raids, reprisals, massacres on both sides. I'd lost neighbors to Apache warriors. The army had done worse to Apache villages. I knew because I'd been there for one of them. Her eyes opened, dark, fierce, even half dead, daring me to finish what somebody else had started. Gagandona, she whispered. Black crows are coming. My blood went cold. I knew that phrase, knew it too damn well. It's what the Apache called certain cavalry units, the ones that wore black hats and left nothing but ashes behind them. Reed's men. Decision made itself. I slid my arms under her and lifted. Light as a child, but tough as old leather. Her body tensed, ready to fight, even dying, but she didn't have the strength left. Easy out, I said. I got you. She went limp, eyes sliding shut. I turned toward home. Deer forgotten. Storm clouds were building west, and I had maybe 2 hours before she'd be too far gone. My arms burned carrying her weight through the deep snow, but I'd carried worse. Carried dying men off battlefields. Carried my wife's body to frozen ground. The cabin appeared through the trees just as the first snowflakes started falling. I kicked the door open, laid her on my bed, the only bed, and that's when I saw it. The tattoo on her shoulder visible where the buckskin had torn away, eagle clutching a rattlesnake in its talons. I'd seen that symbol before, burned into my memory along with smoke and screaming. Raven Ridge, 10 years ago, the massacre I'd tried to stop and failed, and I knew, God help me, I knew, I'd just brought the past into my home, and it was bleeding all over my only quilt. I built the fire high. The cabin warmed slowly, ice melting off the window glass in crooked rivulets. She lay unconscious on my bed, her breathing shallow but steady. First thing was getting her out of those wet clothes before the cold finished what the rope burns had started. I worked careful, preserving what modesty I could with my only quilt. The injuries were worse than I'd thought. Rope burns on both wrists, deep enough I could see raw meat beneath. A bullet grazed across her shoulder blade, infected and angry. Bruises everywhere, ribs, arms, face. Someone had worked her over methodical, trying to break her. Hadn't succeeded. I heated water in the kettle, cleaned each wound with cloth strips torn from an old shirt. She flinched in her sleep when I touched the worst spots, but didn't wake. I'd tended plenty of wounds in the war, knew enough to keep a man breathing. Applied salve from the tin I kept for Cooper's saddle sores, wrapped her wrists in clean bandages, covered her with Elizabeth's shawl, my wife's only good one, the one she'd worn to church. Hadn't touched it in 3 years, but it seemed right somehow. "You got a name?" I asked when her eyes finally opened hours later. She stared at me long enough I figured she wouldn't answer. Then, "Aita." "Silas." Silence settled between us, heavy as the snow outside. I offered her water in a tin cup, the same dented one I'd used for 10 years. She drank like she'd been wandering the desert, water spilling down her chin, but she didn't waste a drop. "Been running long?" I asked. "Chain." She touched the rope burns, and that single word told me everything I needed to know. I heated beans over the fire, broke my last heel of bread in half. She ate slow, every swallow looking like it hurt. I didn't ask questions. She didn't offer answers. That was fine. Outside, the wind picked up, driving snow against the cabin walls. Good. Storm would cover our tracks, buy us time before whoever was hunting her came looking, if they came looking. Cooper whinnied from the stable, nervous about something. I checked the window, saw nothing but white. Still, the hair on my neck stood up. That horse had better instincts than most men I'd served with. "Sleep," I told her. "I'll keep watch." She studied my face like she was trying to solve a puzzle, then nodded once and closed her eyes. I sat by the fire, rifle across my knees, and tried not to think about what I'd done. Harboring an Apache when tensions were running hot was a hanging offense in some parts. The territorial governor had made it clear. Hostile Indians were to be turned over to military authority. No exceptions. But she wasn't hostile. She was half dead and scared and alone. Hell, I knew that feeling. Morning came gray and cold. The storm had passed, leaving 3 fresh feet of snow. I was frying salt pork when I heard it, hoofbeats, muffled by the snow but getting closer. I grabbed the rifle, moved to the window. 3 riders, Deputy Sam Harding in front, flanked by Clyde Harmon and another man I didn't recognize. They reined up 30 yards out, horses blowing steam. "Silas Thornton," Harding's voice carried clear in the cold air. "We got reports you're harboring someone. Need to have a word." Behind me, Aida sat up, eyes wide. "Stay quiet," I whispered. "Let me handle this." I opened the door, just wide enough to show myself. Rifle held casual, but ready. "Morning, Sam. Something I can help you with?" The deputy's eyes flicked past me, trying to see inside the cabin. "That depends, Silas. You alone in there?" "Just me and my horse. Sam." I kept my voice level, friendly even. "Why?" Deputy Harding shifted in his saddle, snow crunching under his mount's hooves. He was a decent man, far as lawmen went, tried to keep things peaceful, but he took orders like everyone else. "Colonel Reed's looking for an Apache woman, escaped his custody 2 days back. Dangerous criminal," he says. "Criminal?" I let that word hang in the cold air. "Or prisoner." Clyde Harmon spat into the snow. "Don't matter which, she's Apache. That makes her the Army's business." "Reed ain't Army anymore," I said. "He's a railroad dog now, wearing a suit instead of a uniform." Harding's jaw tightened. "Silas, I don't want trouble. Just let us look around, and we'll be on our way." "I mind, Sam. This is private property, and you got no warrant. We got authority from the territorial governor himself." Harding pulled a folded paper from his coat. "Says we can search any property suspected of harboring hostile Indians." Hostile. I tasted the word like bile. That what Reed's calling her? The third rider, the one I didn't know, edged his horse forward. Younger man, maybe 30, with cruel eyes and a fresh haircut that said he was new to the territory. "You got a problem with following the law, old man?" "I got a problem with calling torture law." That brought them up short. "What are you talking about?" Harding asked. "Rope burns, bullet wounds, bruises that say someone beat her systematic trying to make her talk. That sound like arresting a criminal to you, Sam? Or something else?" Harding's face went careful. He'd been a deputy long enough to know things weren't always what they seemed, but he also had a job to keep. "Silas, I don't know what you think you know." The cabin door creaked behind me. Aida stepped out, Elizabeth's shawl wrapped around her shoulders, face bruised but head high. She met their stares without flinching, and I saw Harding's eyes go to the bandages on her wrists. "There she is." The young rider reached for his sidearm. "That's the savage Reed's looking for." I moved the rifle, not pointing it at anyone, just making it more visible. Easy. Ma'am, Harding said, you'll need to come with us. Colonel's orders. Aida said nothing, just stood there like a statue carved from stone. I stepped between them and heard, she ain't going anywhere. Silas, she ain't property, Sam, and she ain't leaving, not while I'm breathing. Clyde leaned forward in his saddle. You're interfering with military business, Thornton. That's a serious charge. Military business? I felt something hot rising in my chest, 10 years of guilt and rage finding its way out. You want to talk about military business? I was there at Raven Ridge, saw what Reed did to a peaceful village, women, children, elders preparing for winter ceremony. The words landed like stones in a pond, ripples spreading across their faces. That's a lie, the young rider said, but his voice wavered. I was a captain in the Union Army, scout and tracker. Reed was my commanding officer. I looked at Harding straight on. He ordered that attack based on intelligence he knew was false. Wanted that land cleared for the railroad even back then. I tried to stop it. When I couldn't, I resigned. Harding was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, Clyde shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. That's a serious accusation, the deputy said finally. It's the truth, and that woman— I didn't look back at her, kept my eyes on the men with guns. She survived it, barely. Lived 10 years with the memory of what we did to her people. And now Reed's got her again, torturing her for information about land he wants to steal. You got proof of any of this? Harding asked. Look at her wrists. Look at her face. That's proof enough. The young rider made a disgusted sound. They're savages. Probably did it to themselves for sympathy. I took a step forward, rifle rising slightly. Say that again. Harding put up a hand. Easy, all of you. He studied me for a long moment, then looked at Aida. Whatever he saw in her face, the dignity, the pain, the defiance, made him pause. Silas, even if what you're saying is true, I got orders. Governor's office says bring her in. Then you'll have to go through me. That's your final word? It is. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the wind and the nervous shifting of horses. My finger rested near the trigger guard. Not threatening yet, but close. These were neighbors, men I'd known for years, but I'd draw on them if I had to. Harding saw it in my eyes. All right. He backed his horse up a step. I'll report that you refused cooperation. You do that. Reed will come himself, Silas, with more than 3 men. He's got papers from the territorial governor, authorization to use force if necessary. Let him come. Clyde spat again. You're a traitor, Thornton. To your people, to your uniform, to everything decent. My people, I said slowly, are those who can't defend themselves. Always have been. The young rider's hand hovered near his gun. We should just take her, 3 against 1. Try it, my voice went flat. See how that works out for you. Harding grabbed the young man's reins. We're leaving, now. As they turned their horses, the deputy looked back one more time. Reed's offering amnesty if you hand her over by sunset tomorrow. After that, you're both wanted, dead or alive. Paper don't make it right, Sam. No, Harding admitted quietly. But it makes it legal. They rode off into the snow, and I watched until they disappeared into the tree line. Behind me, Aida's voice was soft. You should give me to them. Save yourself. I turned to face her. Already lost everything that mattered once. Ain't doing it twice. Your wife, Elizabeth, she would want this? I looked at the photograph visible through the window, sitting on its shelf. She'd have helped you herself, then fed me if I tried to stop her. Something like a smile touched Aida's bruised face. Then it faded. They will come back, with more men, more guns. I know. I looked at the horizon where smoke had started to rise. Distant, but visible. Someone burning something. Message received. We leave at first light, I said. I know a place. Navajo settlement, 2 days south. Man there owes me a favor. Navajo and Apache not always friends. These Navajo hate Reed more than they distrust Apache. That night, we packed what we could carry. I kept watch by the window, rifle loaded, while Aida slept fitfully. Around midnight, I saw them, torches moving through the trees like fireflies. 15, maybe 20 riders. The lead horse wore a black coat that caught the moonlight. Reed. His voice carried across the snow. Thornton, send her out and live. Refuse and burn. I looked at Aida, now awake beside me. There's a cellar door. Tunnel leads to the creek. Old scout trick. How we escape with so many. I grinned without humor. Sometimes the only way forward is underground. Outside, Reed was shouting orders. Boots hit my porch. Time to go, I whispered. We dropped through the trap door as they broke down my front door. The tunnel was narrow, dirt-walled, barely wide enough for a man's shoulders. I dug it myself the first winter after Elizabeth died. Lesson learned from the war. Never have just one door when men with guns come calling. I went first, oil lamp held low, Aida close behind. Above us, Boots thundered across the cabin floor. Reed's voice cut through the darkness. Search everywhere. The cellar, the loft, tear it apart. The tunnel ran maybe 50 yards, angling down toward the frozen creek. Water had seeped through in places, turning the floor to mud that sucked at our boots. My bad shoulder screamed as I crawled, but I kept moving. Behind me, Aita's breathing came quick and shallow. Injuries slowing her down, but she didn't complain. We emerged in a thick stand of brush near the creek bank. I'd camouflaged the exit years ago with deadfall and branches. Now I pushed through, helping Aida out into the bitter cold. Cooper waited where I'd tied him during the night. Smart horse, steady nerves. I'd saddled him hours ago, loaded saddlebags with what supplies we could carry. Some men called it paranoia. I called it preparation. Can you ride? I whispered. She nodded, teeth chattering. I helped her mount, then swung up behind her. The frozen creek provided hard surface, no tracks in ice. We moved quiet as ghosts, Cooper picking his way careful along the streambed. Behind us, orange light bloomed. My cabin going up in flames. Aida stiffened. You're home. Just wood, I said, though my throat tightened watching it burn. Everything I'd built with my own hands, every memory of Elizabeth I'd tried to preserve, gone. Keep moving. We followed the creek for near an hour, putting distance between us and Reed's men. The forest closed around us, pine branches heavy with snow blocking out the moon. Temperature dropped lower, deadly cold now, the kind that finds its way through layers of wool to settle in your bones. Then I heard them. Dogs. They brought trackers, I said. Hold on. Hold on. I urged Cooper into deeper snow, away from the creek. Harder going, but it would slow the dogs. We climbed through dense timber, branches whipping at us in the dark. Aida gripped my coat, her body trembling. Cold, or pain, or fear, maybe all three. Dawn came slow, gray light filtering through the trees. We'd covered maybe 5 miles, but I could still hear the dogs. Distant, but getting closer. Reed was persistent, I'd give him that. That's when I saw the rider ahead. Single horseman, blocking the trail, waiting. As we got closer, I recognized the uniform. Union Army cavalry, captain's bars on the shoulders. My heart sank. James Wallace, my old lieutenant from the war. Jim, I said, pulling Cooper to a stop. Captain Thornton. Wallace's voice was formal, careful. 3 more soldiers materialized from the trees surrounding us. It's been a long time. Not long enough, apparently. His eyes flicked to Aita, then back to me. I need you both to dismount. Orders from Colonel Reed. My hand moved toward the rifle. Can't do that, Jim. Don't make this harder than it is. You're outnumbered, outgunned. Just... He paused. Something strange in his expression. Please, Silas, just dismount. Trust me. Trust you? I laughed, bitter. You're Reed's man now? Please. That word, the way he said it, made me hesitate. We'd served together for 3 years. He'd been at Raven Ridge, too, seen what Reed had done. The young lieutenant who'd vomited behind a burning lodge while the massacre happened. I dismounted slow, helped Aida down. She swayed, nearly fell. I caught her elbow. The soldiers surrounded us, took our weapons. Wallace waited until his men had moved out of earshot, checking our horses and gear. Then he stepped close, voice dropping to barely a whisper. Reed has 20 men hunting you. I'm buying you time. I stared at him. What? I know what happened at Raven Ridge. I was there, remember? His eyes held mine. I've been gathering evidence on Reed for 2 years, him and Senator Carlisle. They're running a land grab scheme, Apache territories for silver deposits. Why didn't you? Because Reed has connections all the way to Washington. One junior officer making accusations. I'd be court-martialed and Reed would still walk free. He glanced over his shoulder, checking his men. But you alive to testify when the time comes, that changes everything. So what's this? I gestured at the soldiers, our confiscated weapons. Publicly, I'm arresting you. Privately, I'm getting you to safety. He pulled our rifle and pistol from where his corporal had laid them, handed them back. You'll escape in about an hour. Head to Hostin So's settlement. He's expecting you. You sent word? Mackenzie did. We've been working together. Wallace pulled documents from his saddlebag. Letters, maps, ledgers. This is why Reed wants her map. Look. The papers showed correspondence between Reed and Senator Carlisle. Plans for railroad expansion through Apache sacred lands. Financial records. Payoffs to territorial officials. Bribes to surveyors. And geological reports confirming massive silver deposits in the Sierra Blanca. Not just any silver, Wallace explained. Native silver, pure, in quantities that could make men richer than railroad barons. Worth tens of millions, maybe more. Aida leaned forward, studying the documents. This proves Reed's crimes. Some of them, but we need more. We need the complete map to show exactly what he's after, and we need you both alive to testify before a federal judge. What federal judge? I asked. They're all in Reed's pocket. Not Judge Marcus Hale in Albuquerque. Only honest judge within 200 miles. But you have to reach him alive, and Reed's bringing in federal marshals tomorrow with warrants. Murder charges. Says you killed 2 of his men at your cabin. That's a lie. I haven't killed anyone. Doesn't matter. He has witnesses. All paid off. It's legal enough to hang you. The weight of it settled on my shoulders. How much time we got? Maybe 36 hours before every lawman in the territory is hunting you. Wallace handed me ammunition, dried meat, a canteen. Get to Hostin So. He has resources, and he knows how to get you to Judge Hale. What about you? I'll keep searching for you, slowly, buy you as much time as I can. He looked at Aita. Your people deserve justice. Help us hit it. She met his eyes, assessing, finally nodded. I will not forget your help, Captain Wallace. Don't thank me yet. You're not safe. He mounted his horse, raised his voice so his men could hear. You have 10 minutes before we come after you. Run. Then quieter. There's an old mission ruins on the South Ridge. Spanish church, abandoned 50 years. Get there by tomorrow sunrise. Someone will meet you. They'll have information about the other map pieces. What mission? I don't... Gunshots cracked the air, Wallace firing into the sky. His men scrambled for their horses. Go, he shouted. Now! We ran. Cooper carried us both at a hard gallop through the forest, branches whipping past. Behind us, I could hear Wallace's men giving chase, but staying just far enough back to be convincing without catching us. We rode for 2 hours straight, climbing higher into the mountains. The terrain grew rougher, snow deeper. Finally, I reined Cooper in near a frozen waterfall, let him blow. Aida slumped against me, exhausted. Can we trust him? Don't know, but we got no other play. The mission he spoke of, you know it? No, but I know someone who might. Hostin, so knows every trail, every ruin in these mountains. She was quiet for a moment, then, Silas, the map pieces. I have only one, but Reed mentioned 4 total. Where are the others? One with Reed's men, they took it when they captured me. One with Navajo keeper, Hostin So's grandfather gave it to his people long ago. And one... She hesitated. One with Mescalero Apache, hidden with their medicine woman. And so even if we escape Reed, we still need to find the other pieces to prove what he's after. Yes, and to complete the ceremony, to protect the Silver River properly. I looked at the sky, sun climbing, storm clouds building again. We had maybe 6 hours of good riding before dark, before Reed's men picked up our trail again. Then we'd better move fast, I said. We rode on, 2 fugitives bound for a settlement that might shelter us or turn us in. Behind us, the past. Ahead, uncertain allies and a sacred place men would kill to possess. And somewhere in these mountains, an old Spanish mission that held answers we needed, if we lived long enough to find it. We reached Hostin So's settlement 3 hours past noon, half frozen and nearly spent. 2 Navajo scouts had found us an hour earlier, appeared from the snow like spirits, and guided us the final miles through a hidden canyon. The settlement nestled in a protected valley, hogans and wooden structures clustered around a small stream. Smoke rose from cooking fires, and children played in the snow, their laughter strange and welcome after days of running. Hostin So waited outside the largest hogan, silver-haired, face carved by 70 winters, eyes sharp as a hawk's. He'd been an Army scout during my service, one of the few men who'd earned my complete trust. Silas Thornton. His voice carried the gravel of age but strength underneath. Many winters since you rode with scouts. Too many, Hostin, so. I dismounted, helped Aita down. She swayed on her feet, and the old man's wife, Nahoni, moved forward immediately, taking Aita's arm. Apache woman, Hostin so observed, far from her people's lands. Her people are dead, I said quietly. Raven Ridge. Understanding flickered in his eyes. The Navajo had heard about the massacre. Everyone had. Come. You need food, warmth, rest, then we talk. They gave us a small hogan to ourselves. A fire burned in the center pit, and Nahoni brought rabbit stew, fresh bread, blankets that smelled of cedar smoke. She tended Aita's wounds with gentle hands and herbs that made the cabin smell like mountain sage. These men are animals, Nahoni muttered, seeing the rope burns up close. Aita ate slowly, each bite seeming to hurt, but color was returning to her face, the warmth and food bringing her back from the edge. I sat across the fire from her, both of us quiet for a long time, just the crackle of wood and the distant sound of children playing. You did not have to risk everything, she said finally. Maybe I needed to, for my own soul. You carry heavy weight from that day. Every day for 10 years, I stared into the flames. Seeing you brought it back, but also gave me a chance to make it right. She reached across the space between us, touched my hand briefly. Her fingers were warm now, no longer the ice-cold grip of near death. You are a good man, Silas Thornton. First genuine smile I'd seen from her, small but real. I found charcoal and taught her to write her name in English on a piece of bark. She taught me Apache blessing words, sounds that felt strange in my mouth, but right somehow. Later, she showed me her map fragment explaining the symbols. Spirit paths, ceremony sites, sacred waters. This one, she pointed to a series of wavy lines, shows path to Silver River, most sacred of all Apache places. What makes it sacred? Earth's blood flows there, pure silver, blessed by Creator, for ceremonies, healing, vision quests. Her finger traced the markings. Not treasure like white men think. It is church, hospital, holy place. How much silver are we talking about? Enough to make man richer than kings. Her eyes met mine. But to take it would curse taker forever. My people know this. Reed does not care. That evening, Hostin So called us to council. The elders gathered, 6 men and women, whose combined age probably topped 400 years. We have discussed your situation, Hostin So said. We will help. But more than that, I have something that can protect you. He brought out an ancient document, yellowed with age, Treaty of Fort Sumner, signed 1868. Article 7, Sanctuary Law. One tribe may offer protection to another through adoption. He looked at Aita. If we adopt you into Navajo Nation, federal law must recognize it. You become our legal responsibility. But I am Apache. Apache and Navajo are cousins. Blood recognizes blood. He smiled. This gives you legal standing. Federal jurisdiction, not territorial. What about Silas? Aita asked. Already done. Hostin. So pulled out papers. 10 years ago, Canyon de Chelly, you saved 6 Navajo scouts from ambush. I adopted you then in ceremony, just never filed the papers officially. I can do that now. Hope stirred in my chest, the first real hope since this started. There's more, Hostin So said. He brought out a wooden box, opened it carefully. Inside, wrapped in red cloth, lay another piece of hide, a map fragment. My grandfather kept this, given to him by Apache medicine man 60 years ago for safekeeping between tribes. Aita gasped. The second piece. We laid both fragments side by side. They fit together perfectly, showing a larger section of terrain, canyon systems, water routes, ceremonial markers, still incomplete but closer to whole. Where are the others? I asked. One with Reed, Aita said, one with Mescalero Keeper in the southern mountains. Hostin So nodded slowly. Then we must get the 4th piece before Reed does. That night, they performed the adoption ceremony, simple but powerful. Herbs burned, blessings spoken in Navajo. Aita wept quietly, and I realized she'd found the first family she'd had since Raven Ridge. For the first time in days, we slept without fear. Then just before dawn, a young Navajo runner burst into our hogan. Riders coming, many riders, from the north. I grabbed my rifle, rushed outside. On the horizon, torchlight, 20, maybe 30 riders, and in the lead, a black coat that caught the rising sun. Reed had found us. Reed didn't attack. He surrounded. By full daylight, his men had formed a perimeter around the settlement, 30 armed riders, most wearing deputy badges that probably cost Reed $50 apiece. And standing in the center of the line, a man I hadn't expected to see. U.S. Marshal Silas Gentry, my namesake, though we'd never met. Cold-eyed, by the book, the kind of lawman who'd arrest his own mother if the paperwork was in order. "This is a federal matter now," Hostin So said quietly, standing beside me. "Territorial deputies I could refuse. Federal marshals, I know." My stomach turned to lead. Gentry rode forward alone, stopping 20 feet from where we stood. He held up a rolled document. "Silas Thornton, you're under arrest for treason against the United States, aiding enemy combatants, and murder of federal employees." Murder? The word hit like a fist. "I haven't killed anyone." "2 of Colonel Reed's men were found dead at your cabin, shot." Gentry's voice carried no emotion. "Witnesses place you at the scene." "That's a damn lie." "Tell it to the judge. You have 10 seconds to surrender peacefully." I looked at Wallace, sitting his horse near the back of the formation. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Whatever plan he'd had, whatever evidence he'd been gathering, it didn't matter now. Reed had moved faster, bought bigger guns. Aita stepped beside me. "I will surrender too. This is my fault." "No," I grabbed her arm. "You stay here. You're under Navajo protection now. The adoption papers are legal." Gentry shook his head. "The Apache woman is wanted as well. Conspiracy to commit murder, theft of federal property." "She's Navajo now," Hostin So called out. "Adopted under Treaty of Fort Sumner, Article 7. Federal law recognizes tribal adoption. You have no jurisdiction." "Marshal," Reed's voice cut across the standoff. He rode forward, that black coat perfect despite days of hard riding. "The treaty doesn't apply to active fugitives from federal warrants. The adoption is invalid." "That's not," I started. "It's legally gray," Gentry interrupted. "Which means the courts will decide. Until then, both of you are coming with me." I could fight. Hostin. So had warriors, and I still had my rifle. But fighting federal marshals would make everything worse, would prove Reed's lies true, would bring violence down on people who'd shown us nothing but kindness. "Don't," Aita whispered, reading my thoughts. "Not here. Not like this." I lowered the rifle. They came at me fast. 2 marshals grabbed my arms, twisted them behind my back. Iron shackles clicked around my wrist, cold metal biting through my shirt. Someone kicked my legs out from under me, drove my face into the snow. "Silas!" Aita screamed. I turned my head, saw them grabbing her too. She fought like a wildcat, landed one solid punch that broke a deputy's nose before they wrestled her down. 4 men to hold 1 wounded woman, and she was still fighting. "Stop," I shouted. "I'll cooperate. Just don't hurt her." Reed walked his horse closer, looked down at me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You should have walked away, Captain. Could have lived out your days in that little cabin, died in your sleep an old man." He shook his head. "Now you'll hang, and the Apache woman will watch before we hang her too." They dragged us through the settlement like animals. Navajo families watched, helpless, some with tears, some with anger, all knowing there was nothing they could do. Federal marshals trumped tribal law, at least when Reed held their leashes. Hostin So tried to speak to me as they loaded us onto horses. "I will send word to Judge Hale. There are still—" A marshal shoved him back. "No contact with the prisoners." The old man's eyes held mine. He nodded once, a promise. Whatever he could do, he would. We rode north for 2 days. They kept us separated, me in front with half the men, Aita behind with the rest. At night, they chained us to different trees, far enough apart I couldn't see her, could only hear her sometimes, singing those Apache death chants soft under her breath. By the 3rd day, we reached Santa Fe. They paraded us through the main street at noon, maximum humiliation. Shackled, filthy, beaten down, crowds gathered, some spat, some shouted "traitor" and "savage," and a few turned away, unwilling to watch, but not willing to help either. Someone threw a rotted apple that hit my shoulder. I kept my head up, wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Then I saw her, a woman in the crowd, weathered face and kind eyes. She looked at me, looked at Aita, and her expression crumbled into grief. She turned to her husband, whispered something. He pulled her away. But she'd seen, she knew. Small mercy. The territorial prison was stone and iron and the smell of human suffering. They threw me in a cell, 6 feet by 8 feet, with straw on the floor and a bucket in the corner. One small window high up showed a square of sky. I wasn't alone. An old Mexican man sat in the corner, thin as a rail, coughing wetly. consumption from the sound of it. He watched me with rheumy eyes as I slumped against the wall. Welcome to hell, amigo. Thanks. My voice came out rough. What they got you for? Treason? Murder? Helping an Apache woman? He nodded like that made perfect sense. Me? I worked for a senator, saw things I shouldn't have seen. They call it embezzlement, but really, I just know too much. Which senator? Carlisle. I looked at him sharply. The one working with Reed? See, the same. He coughed into a rag and it came away spotted with blood. But I got message out before they caught me. Federal investigator, woman named Sarah Caldwell. She coming? Already here. In Santa Fe, gathering evidence. He smiled with teeth that were mostly gone. There is still hope, my friend. Doesn't feel like it. The old man, Miguel, he said his name was, shifted closer. Let me tell you something my abuelo told me. Honor ain't land. It ain't money. It ain't what people say about you. He tapped his chest. It's how you stand after you fall. Can you still look in the mirror? Can you still sleep at night? That's honor. I've lost everything. No, you have breath. You have purpose. You have someone counting on you. He gestured toward the women's block somewhere beyond the stone walls. That Apache woman, she would have died in the snow, no? You gave her life. That matters. We're both going to hang. Maybe, but you tried. That's more than most men can say. He settled back against the wall. Rest now. Tomorrow we see what tomorrow brings. I couldn't sleep. The cell was freezing, my shoulder throbbed, and every time I closed my eyes I saw Aida's face when they grabbed her. Around midnight, a guard walked past, posted a paper on the wall across from the bars where I could see it. Notice of trial. Silas Thornton and Aida, Apache. Charges: treason, murder, conspiracy trial. Date: dawn, 3 days hence verdict. Expected: guilty. Sentence: death by hanging. I stared at that paper until the words blurred. 3 days. Miguel's coughing filled the cell. Outside, somewhere in the dark, a woman was singing. Apache words I didn't understand, but the melody was Aida's. She was still fighting, so would I. Dawn came cold and gray. They dragged me from the cell in chains, wrists and ankles both, shuffling like an old man. Miguel watched me go with sad eyes. Stand tall, amigo. Give them nothing. I nodded, tried to. The territorial courthouse was packed, standing room only. Every merchant, rancher, and gossip in Santa Fe had turned out for the show. Judge Harlan Blackwood presided, a fat man with Reed's fingerprints all over him. The jury looked like they'd already made up their minds. Reed sat in the front row, black coat brushed clean, face calm as Sunday morning. They brought Aida in through a side door. Her face was bruised fresh. Someone had hit her since I'd last seen her. Our eyes met across the courtroom. She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, still unbroken. The prosecutor was a snake named Cornelius Finch, slick hair, slicker voice. Gentlemen of the jury, this is a simple case. He paced like a preacher, warming to his sermon. Captain Silas Thornton, disgraced officer, renegade, traitor to his uniform and his people, the Apache woman, Aida, murderess, thief, savage. Simple. He made it sound so simple. The charges took 10 minutes to read: treason, aiding enemy combatants, theft of military property, arson, resisting lawful arrest, conspiracy to defraud the United States government, and murder, 2 of Reed's men, shot dead at my cabin. We seek the maximum penalty, Finch concluded, death by hanging, for both defendants. I stood. Your Honor, I'd like to... Sit down. Blackwood didn't even look at me. You'll speak when permitted. But I have evidence that... Bailiff, restrain the defendant. A guard grabbed my shoulder, forced me down into the chair. The courtroom laughed. Actually laughed. Aida's hands gripped the arms of her chair, knuckles white. Reed took the stand first, hand on the Bible, swearing to tell the truth before God and man. The lies came smooth as honey. I tried to help Captain Thornton after his breakdown at Raven Ridge. Reed's voice carried sympathy, regret. The massacre troubled him deeply. I gave him the chance to resign, quietly, keep his honor intact. And how did he repay this kindness? Finch asked. By stealing classified documents, by harboring a dangerous fugitive who tortured and murdered 2 of my men. Reed shook his head sadly. I wanted to believe the best of him. I was wrong. Tell the court about the Apache woman. She's a known criminal, wanted for attacks on settlers, theft of government property. When my men attempted to bring her in for questioning, she killed 2 of them in cold blood. Captain Thornton helped her escape. Did you witness this yourself? I arrived moments after, saw Thornton standing over the bodies, gun in hand, the woman beside him, covered in blood. Every word a lie. Smooth, practiced, perfect lies. I tried to stand again. That's not... Mr. Thornton, Blackwood's gavel cracked. One more outburst and I'll have you gagged. They presented evidence. Forged documents that looked like my handwriting. A confession to helping Apache raiders. Affidavits from dead men, conveniently written before their deaths, describing how I'd turned traitor. The map fragment Reed had taken from Aida presented as stolen military intelligence. And what does this map show? Finch held it up for the jury. Sacred Apache burial sites, Reed said, which Miss Aida planned to use as staging grounds for attacks on railroad construction. Captain Thornton was helping her coordinate these attacks. I wanted to scream, wanted to tear those lies apart with my bare hands. Your Honor, I said, voice shaking with rage, please, let me speak. Blackwood sighed like I was a tiresome child. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Thornton. I stood, chains rattling. Everything Colonel Reed said is a lie. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. 10 years ago at Raven Ridge, Reed ordered the massacre of a peaceful Apache village. Women, children, elders, preparing for a winter ceremony, based on intelligence he knew was false. Reed's face stayed calm, but something flickered in his eyes. I tried to stop it, told him the intelligence was wrong, that these were families, not warriors. He ordered the attack anyway. I looked at the jury. That woman, Aida, she survived that massacre as a child. I found her 2 weeks ago dying in the snow, rope burns on her wrists, bullet wounds, beaten near to death. Your Honor, Reed stood. This is absurd fantasy from a deranged mind. Not by her people, I continued, louder. By Reed's men. They tortured her for a map showing sacred Apache sites, because Reed wants those sites, not for heritage or history, for the silver underneath. I have letters from Senator Carlisle. Reed pulled documents from his coat, authorizing legal railroad expansion, all proper, all patriotic. Patriotic? I laughed, bitter. You murdered a village for silver deposits. You're torturing survivors for maps to sacred land. That's not patriotism. That's theft, dressed up in a flag. The courtroom erupted. Shouts, arguments, the gavel pounding. And then the door opened. James Wallace walked in, full uniform, flanked by 2 federal marshals. My heart leaped. Finally, the evidence he'd been gathering. Your Honor, Wallace said, I bring federal warrants. For Colonel Reed? I asked. Wallace looked at me. Something in his face made my stomach drop. For both of you, Silas. You and Colonel Reed. Conspiracy to defraud the United States government. Conspiracy to commit genocide. Murder of federal witnesses. The words hit like bullets. Jim, you said... I said I was gathering evidence. His voice was flat. Never said who it implicated. You were at Raven Ridge? Silas, you followed Reed's orders. You pulled the trigger. That makes you complicit. Twist number 3. The betrayal I hadn't seen coming. Reed stood, furious. This is insane. I have immunity from the territorial governor. From territorial charges, Wallace said. Not federal. But then he turned back to me. However, given the complexity of the case, I'm recommending both defendants be remanded to federal custody pending full investigation. A lifeline, not much of one, but... Judge Blackwood cut him off. Captain Wallace, I appreciate federal interest in this matter, but this court has jurisdiction, and I intend to exercise it. He turned to the jury. Gentlemen, have you reached a verdict? They hadn't even deliberated. The foreman stood. We have, Your Honor. On all charges, we find both defendants guilty. The courtroom exploded. Aida's face went pale. Reed smiled. Sentencing will be immediate, Blackwood said. Both defendants are hereby sentenced to death by hanging. Execution in 7 days, unless federal authorities can demonstrate sufficient cause to supersede this court's authority. Wallace tried to speak. Blackwood ignored him. I looked at Aida. She was staring at her hands, tears falling silent onto the shackles. A guard grabbed my arm. Back to your cell, traitor. As they dragged me out, I heard her voice, singing in Apache. Not a death chant this time. A war song. She wasn't done fighting, neither was I. But 7 days. We had 7 days to live. They threw me back in the cell. Miguel was waiting, along with the rats and the cold and the smell of death. 7 days, I said, slumping against the wall. I know, I heard. He coughed into his rag. But listen, things are happening. What things? That federal woman, Caldwell. She's been talking to everyone, witnesses, officials, even some of Reed's own men. He leaned closer. And there's a newspaper man from New York, asking questions about Raven Ridge, about Reed's railroad connections. Won't matter. We hang in a week. Maybe, maybe not. Miguel's eyes held something I hadn't seen before. Hope. Hold on, amigo. Just hold on. Days blurred together. Fever came back. My shoulder wound infected again from the rough handling. I drifted in and out, seeing Elizabeth sometimes, hearing Aitas singing through the stone walls. On the 5th day, the guard brought me a slate. From Aita. She'd scratched words into it. 3rd piece with Mackenzie. 4th piece found. Complete map exists. Truth will flow like Silver River. Hold on. I pressed my hand against the stone wall, imagining I could feel her on the other side. I'm here, I whispered. Still here. Midnight, 6th day. Footsteps in the corridor. Not guards. These walked different. Purposeful. The cell door opened, and 3 figures entered. A woman in a traveling suit, sharp-eyed, and all business. A man in judge's robes, older, but with a spine like iron. And behind them, a young man with a notebook and pencil. Mr. Thornton, the woman said. I'm Sarah Caldwell, federal investigator for the Department of Interior. This is Judge Marcus Hale from Albuquerque, and Mr. Jameson from the New York Tribune. I sat up, head swimming. What? We need your testimony. Everything. Raven Ridge, finding Aita, Reed's conspiracy, all of it. So I told them. Every detail I could remember, fever weak but determined. They took notes, asked questions, pushed for specifics. When I finished, Caldwell opened a leather case. We've gathered evidence. She laid out documents on the cell floor. Miguel's correspondence showing the senator's involvement. Captain Wallace's full confession, he broke yesterday, seeking immunity. Mackenzie's testimony about the map fragments. Host and So's testimony about treaty violations. Geological surveys confirming massive silver deposits at the sacred sites, Judge Hale added, and 3 of the 4 map pieces united. I stared at the assembled fragments. They formed a nearly complete picture, just one section missing. Enough to indict Reed, Senator Carlisle, Judge Blackwood, and Marshal Gentry, Caldwell said. But we're fighting territorial authority. Blackwood set your execution for dawn tomorrow. Can you stop it? Judge Hale's face was grim. I can override him. Federal jurisdiction supersedes territorial. But I need legal grounds. The treaty, I said. The adoption into Navajo Nation. Blackwood claims it doesn't apply to active fugitives. The judge pulled out papers. But he's wrong. Mackenzie filed the adoption papers with the federal recorder before your arrest. Makes you a legal member of the Navajo Nation under the Treaty of Fort Sumner. Caldwell smiled, which means federal jurisdiction applies. Territorial court had no authority over you. And Aita? Same. Plus, she pulled out another document. Birth records. Her father signed a treaty with the U.S. government and C8, making him and all descendants federal wards. Attacking her is attacking a federally protected person. Reed's entire case collapses. For the first time in days, I felt something like hope. There's more, Judge Hale said. The Silver River site. Under the Federal Antiquities Act of 1874, I can declare it a protected sacred site. I have testimony from 3 tribal nations confirming centuries of ceremonial use. President Grant signed the protection order yesterday, Caldwell added. He's furious about Carlisle's schemes, the senators being recalled to Washington for ethics investigation. The reporter was scribbling frantically. This is going to be front-page news across the country. What happens at dawn? I asked. Judge Hale stood. Justice. Real justice. They brought us out in chains as the sun rose. The gallows waited. Fresh-built wood, 2 nooses swaying in the morning breeze. A crowd had gathered, bigger than the trial, word having spread. Reed stood near the platform, smug. Blackwood on the gallows, ready to officiate. Then federal marshals rode in, real ones, not Reed's paid men. They presented papers to Blackwood. The judge read, his face going from red to white. Judge Hale stepped forward. By federal authority, I hereby vacate the territorial verdict. Defendants Thornton and Aida are released on federal writ, all charges dismissed with prejudice. The crowd erupted. Reed shot to his feet. "This is illegal. I have rights." A federal marshal approached him. "Montgomery Reed, you're under arrest for conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to commit genocide, and murder of federal witnesses." The look on Reed's face as they cuffed him, pure disbelief. They removed our chains. The blacksmith broke each link, and the iron fell away. "You're free," Judge Hale said. Aita and I stood there, hardly daring to believe it, free. But as they led Reed away, he turned back. "This isn't over, Thornton. I have friends, money. I'll be free in a month, and I'll find you." "Maybe," I said. "But now the whole country's watching. Can't hide behind lies anymore." He smiled, cold and certain. "The Silver River is still there. Someone else will claim it. If not me, then others." The threat hung in the air like smoke. We'd won the battle. But the war wasn't finished. Freedom tasted like cold air and possibility. They took us to a hotel under federal protection, real beds, hot food, clean clothes. A doctor tended our wounds properly. For 2 days we rested. But I couldn't shake the feeling we'd left something unfinished. "The ceremony," Aita said, on the third morning. "I never completed it. The spirits still wait at Silver River. Reed's in custody. The site's protected by presidential order. Protection is just paper." She looked out the window toward the distant mountains. "Ceremony makes it real, sacred, permanent. Without that, the Silver River is just a place. It must be blessed properly, or the protection means nothing." Mackenzie arrived that afternoon with news. "Reed's out on bond. His lawyers worked fast. Bail set at $50,000. Someone paid it." "Senator Carlisle?" "Probably. But here's the problem. Reed's already gone. Left Santa Fe last night, and I'm betting I know where he's headed." "The Silver River," I said. "With the 4th map piece he still has. He can't mine it legally anymore, but that won't stop him from trying to take what he can and run." Aita stood. "Then we must go now. Complete the ceremony before he defiles it further." Mackenzie nodded. "I have Mescalero guides ready, but Silas, Reed will have men with him. This could get ugly." I checked the rifle they'd returned to me. Been ugly since the start. Might as well finish it. We rode hard for 2 days, guided by a Mescalero warrior named Nako and his cousin Tarak. The path took us through country that grew wilder with each mile, canyons that cut like knife wounds through red stone, forests so thick the sun barely reached the ground. On the 3rd day, we reached the waterfall. It cascaded down a cliff face, partially frozen, creating a curtain of water and ice. Behind it, barely visible, was the cave entrance. Ancient paintings marked the stone, faded red and black figures of eagles, snakes, thunder beings. "The guardians," Aita whispered. She dismounted, approached on foot. I stayed back, rifle ready, scanning the area. No sign of Reed yet, but my gut said he was close. Aita began to chant, Apache words that seemed to make the air itself vibrate. She moved through the ceremony with her hands raised, addressing each painted figure in turn. Even Nako and Tarak, who'd been skeptical, watched in silence. Then she stepped through the waterfall and vanished into the cave. I waited, counting heartbeats. Nako touched my arm. "Someone comes." Riders, 7 of them, moving through the canyon below. Reed in the lead, that damned black coat unmistakable even at a distance. "Go," I told Nako. "Take the horses, get clear. This is between me and him. We do not abandon allies. You'll honor me more by staying alive. Go." Reluctantly, they withdrew into the forest. I checked my rifle one more time, then followed Aita into the cave. The tunnel was lit by some trick of the rock, a pale glow that seemed to come from the stone itself. I moved quickly, following the sound of rushing water. The cavern opened before me like a cathedral. Massive, beautiful, impossible. And at its center, the Silver River flowed. The water gleamed with an inner light, silver and white and pure. Crystal formations grew from the cavern floor like frozen trees, and beneath the surface I could see veins of native silver so thick they looked like roots of some great metal tree. Aita knelt by the river, hands raised, still chanting. I'd never seen anything so beautiful in my life. "Magnificent, isn't it?" Reed's voice echoed through the cavern. He emerged from a side tunnel, 6 armed men with him. They must have found another entrance. "Reed," I raised the rifle. "It's over. The site's protected. You can't touch it." "Can't I?" He walked to the river's edge, scooped water in his hands. "Do you know what this is worth, Thornton? Not just the silver, though there's enough here to build a dozen railroads, But this silver is pure, special. They say it has healing properties, mystical qualities. You can't take what's sacred and sell it. Watch me. He gestured to his men. Fill every container, take samples. We'll be across the border into Mexico before anyone knows. I can't let you do that. Reed pulled a pistol. Then you'll die trying to stop me. I could have shot him. Should have. My finger rested on the trigger, and every instinct from the war screamed to pull it. But I heard Elizabeth's voice. Revenge poisons the avenger. And I remembered what I'd told the judge. Justice don't need blood, just witnesses. I lowered the rifle. You're right, I said. I won't kill you. Reed laughed. Smart choice, old man. Because you're not worth it. Because killing you makes me like you. I stepped aside. Take your samples. Run to Mexico. Spend your life looking over your shoulder, knowing the whole country knows what you did. You think I care what people think? Reed scooped more water, started filling a canteen. That's when Ayita's chant reached its crescendo. The cavern itself seemed to respond. Wind rose from nowhere, swirling through the chamber. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in seconds. The river's glow intensified until we had to shield our eyes. What the hell? Reed stumbled backward. The silver in the riverbed seemed to pulse with light. Crystals rang like bells, and for just a moment I swear I saw shapes in the light. Figures, spirits, something ancient and powerful and very much present. Reed's men broke, just turned and ran, dropping their rifles, scrambling for the exit. Reed stood alone, staring at the river. His canteen slipped from his fingers. It's real, he whispered. The curse. It's real. The wind died, the light faded. Aida lowered her hands. Ceremony complete, she said quietly. The river is protected, not by law, by spirits, by Creator. Take from it now, and you take your own death. Reed looked at her, then at the river, then at me. Something in him broke, not his body, his spirit. The fight just left. I had it, he said. Right here, all of it. You had a choice, I replied. Honor or gold. You chose wrong. Footsteps behind us. Federal marshals poured into the cavern, led by Wallace and Sarah Caldwell. They'd followed Reed's trail. Colonel Reed, Wallace said, you're in violation of your bond, and you just attempted to steal from a federally protected site with witnesses present. They arrested him without resistance. As they let him out, Reed looked at me one last time. You won, Thornton. Congratulations. Hope it keeps you warm at night. Ain't about winning, I said. Never was. After they'd gone, Aida and I stood by the river. The water flowed peaceful now, that strange glow faded to a gentle shimmer. Is it finished? I asked. The ceremony? Yes. The spirits are home. The river is blessed. She touched my arm. Your part? Also finished. You redeemed yourself, Silas. Elizabeth would be proud. My throat tightened. You think? I know. We walked out together into morning light. Spring had come while we were underground, the ice melting, water running free, green shoots visible in the snow. The war was over, the ghosts were at peace, and for the first time in 10 years, so was I. But as we mounted our horses, the reporter, Jameson, approached with his notebook. Mr. Thornton, one question. If you could go back, knowing everything you know now, would you still pick her up from that snow circle? Would you still risk everything for a stranger? I looked at Aida, at the mountains, at the sky so blue it hurt. Every single time, I said. Because dignity ain't about what's easy, it's about what's right. Even if it cost you everything? Especially then, that's when it matters most. Aida turned to him. And you, stranger? Would you do same for enemy? For someone different than you? The reporter's pen stopped. He looked uncomfortable. I don't know. I'd like to think so. Then you haven't lived yet, I said. Hope you never have to find out. But if you do, I hope you choose right. We rode east into the rising sun. Two people who'd lost everything and found something better. Not home. We'd never have that again. But family, purpose, peace. And that was enough. That was 30 years ago this winter. I'm sitting here now, old as the hills, fire crackling in the hearth of a cabin Aida and I built together on Navajo land, legal and proper. Hostin. So lived to see his great-grandchildren before he passed peaceful at 90, left us his best horses in his will, said we'd earned them. Folks ask me sometimes if it was worth it, losing my home, my reputation, nearly my life, for a woman I didn't know, a people that weren't mine. I'll tell you what I learned about worth. It ain't measured in land deeds or money in the bank. It's measured in whether you can look yourself in the mirror come morning, whether you sleep through the night without ghosts, whether when your time comes you can say you stood for something. Aita still has scars on her wrists. Rope burns never quite fade, but she don't hide them, wears them like medals. Proof she survived, proof she mattered enough to fight for. That old tin cup I first offered her water in, she still uses it, patched it herself when it cracked, says the broken places make it stronger, reckon that's true for people too. Reed died in prison, 5 years later, bitter to the end. Senator Carlisle resigned in disgrace. The Silver River became a federal monument in 1880. Still there, still protected, still sacred. Wallace? He testified at 3 more corruption trials, cleaned up half the territorial government, made general eventually. We exchanged letters at Christmas. Here's what I want you to take from this story. Dignity ain't something they can give you or take away. It's something you choose every single day. Family ain't always blood. Sometimes it's the person you die to protect, the one who saves your photograph from a burning house. Who stands with you when the whole world turns its back? If this story touched you, tell me where you're listening from. Tell me about a time someone showed you dignity when you needed it most. Till next time, friends, may your fire burn warm. May your water run clear. May your dignity carry you through whatever winter comes, and may you always have the courage to pick up a stranger in the snow, because you never know, that stranger might just save your soul.